That bag of resin that we put on top of that block weighs 1,750 pounds.
Foam blocks will make up the filler going underneath US 36 once it's repaired. If it can hold up a highway, certainly it should be able to hold up Marshall, right? Their focus is normally outer space, but NASA is in the middle of a new study focused on wildfire smoke and its impact on the air we Coloradans will be breathing in the future. The air we breathe is at the center of a new zero-emission vehicle standard being adopted by our state. And while it may sound like the state is forcing you to turn in that SUV for a tiny electric car, that is really not the case. We'll explain next.
But first, we start with a weather alert and a live shot from our own meteorologist and storm chaser, Repkin. He is following a very dangerous storm that's out on our eastern plains. Most recently, it had a tornado warning associated with it. He's out east near Yuma. This is going to be out near east central Washington County, heading into Yuma County, and that cell in particular that's shown some strong rotation, some very large hail, and as you can see there from Corey's view, obviously a lot of rain. He's likely going to be on the south end of this cell, following it so he can get a good view if this storm does in fact produce a tornado down the road. And we are going to be watching his live shot. I know we have it streaming, I believe, on 9news.com, so you can check that out as well. That cell continues to move out towards the north and east. Right now, it is still warned for a severe thunderstorm. It is a tornado warning went until 6 p.m. It looks like they did allow that to expire, but the cell moving very quickly towards the northeast at about 15 to 20 miles per hour, producing hail and some potential rotation. Today and tomorrow, we'll see a new threat for severe weather. The risk is a little smaller tomorrow. It'll be marginal across northeastern Colorado, but the storms will have the same timing coming up late in the afternoon and in the evening. We'll drop to 59 tonight. Tomorrow, we're looking at a high of 90, 94 on Sunday. And while Denver stays dry, northeast Colorado, we'll see those storms. We'll see some very hot weather through Sunday, including on Monday, where, Steve, we've got another sunny day and highs in the middle 90s.
All right, Becky, thank you. What is white, square, and 170 pounds? I know what you're thinking. No, it's not me. Each 8-foot foam block sitting on US 36 at Church Ranch weighs 170 pounds. Thousands of them will be placed underneath the highway to hold the road up instead of 30 to 40 feet of soil. So our Marshall Zellinger went to the Aurora Factory to see how these foam blocks are made.
US 36 is about to be held up by a bunch of round things that look a lot like Dippin' Dots.
In my right hand, we have our raw material we call resin.
That resin goes into this machine, which turns it into round pellets. And then those pellets go through this machine and come out in one big block. No, Han Solo is not in there somewhere. This block weighs just 200 pounds. And by the way, don't call this styrofoam.
The correct term is expanded polystyrene. Styrofoam is actually a trade name from Dow.
Mark Alvarado runs the Aurora Insulfoam plant that is mass producing the EPS, which is the future foundation of US 36.
Total, we're going to be providing roughly 6,400 of those 8-foot blocks that you see parked on the road. So far to date, we've shipped about 3,400 of those billets.
The blocks that CDOT are getting weigh 170 pounds each. This one weighs 339. This one, 636. But they all look the same. So how the heck does this work?
When we manufacture EPS, we control the density, which is basically the weight. The heavier that the material comes out of the expander, once it's molded, the more weight it's going to be able to hold.
Using poor judgment, Insulfoam let me borrow one of these, and it's 5.5 pounds. You can just really lift it. I'm going to stab it with a screwdriver. I feel like I'm on America's Got Talent. And it holds at least 150 pounds. It's amazing to me. I'm not good at science. There's a Styrofoam cooler here, Steve, that I think is not going to do the same thing, and the bosses may not be too happy.
Nope. Yep.
Now I have to clean that up.
I was waiting for that. I was like, is that thing actually going to fall apart or not?
Let's just stay on
Impressive.
This
and we should point out, Marshall, that you and I both stood on that thing earlier today in a very uncomfortable moment in the newsroom, and it still didn't collapse.
Yeah, this is really amazing, and it makes me wish I was better at science in school so I could fully understand it, and I hope you got some of it from that story.
Impressive. Impressive, sir, as always. Thank you. So today, state leaders took a step to try to get more people in electric vehicles on Colorado's roads. They adopted a California-like zero-emission vehicle standard. So when you hear that, it makes it sound like the state is going to force you to drive an electric car. But really, this puts some pressure on manufacturers. In 2018, 2.6% of new car sales in Colorado were electric vehicles. They aren't too popular. So today, the Air Quality Control Council voted 8-1 to adopt a zero-emission vehicle standard, which puts pressure on automakers. By the year 2023, the state will require more than 5% of automakers' sales to be electric vehicles. It increases to more than 6% in 2025. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be forced to buy one or drive one. The thought is, since electric vehicles aren't flying off the shelves here, this might force automakers to get creative and offer people more options. On the flip side, the Auto Dealers Association warns this will be bad for dealers and consumers, as dealers will likely have to cut the price of EVs to get them moving off their lots. To make up for it, they say, dealers will have to increase prices of cars people here like to drive, like pickups, SUVs, and vans. So that reminds us of one of Governor Polis's promises. Colorado Governor Jared Polis campaigned on a platform not enforcing or mandating, but on incentivizing and encouraging. So we asked him about this push to force automakers to sell a certain amount of electric vehicles.
Well, I don't think anybody should be forced to drive any car they don't want. This just allows people to choose to drive an electric car if they want. Right now, many of those models aren't even available in our state. So some people want electric cars, and we want to make sure we have charging infrastructure, and the more people that drive them, the better it is for the people that don't drive them too, because it means that when people have electric cars, there's less demand for gas prices come down. So if you want to save money at the pump, having your friends drive electric cars is a good way to do it. If you want to drive one, lower operating costs, they're getting more and more affordable. So it's really all about consumer choice.
By the way, in case you wondered, Marshall's still cleaning up that styrofoam. Someone or someones started that big fire near Deer Creek Canyon Park yesterday. That's at least what firefighters in Jefferson County think. The fire burned well into this morning, but more than 100 firefighters were able to get control of it earlier this afternoon. Everyone who was evacuated is being allowed back. There's an investigation into how that fire started, but several witnesses say they heard an explosion, saw some smoke, and then saw two teenage boys running from the area. While things were getting better in Jefferson County, authorities near Fort Morgan were dealing with several large fires along I-76. Another reminder of just how dry it is after all that growth we saw. This was near the Fort Morgan port of entry. Crews were able to put them out pretty fast and open the roadway back up. NASA scientists believe that wildfires are likely to become more frequent, larger, and harder to extinguish. And they are working on a new study this summer to find out what that means for our air quality of the future. Here's meteorologist Repkin.
According to NASA, wildfire smoke is a mixture of gases and fine particles that are not healthy for humans to breathe. And they also say that smoke impacts and changes the atmosphere.
And so we have airplanes flying through smoke plumes, field teams on the ground measuring the changes in fuels before and after a fire.
It's called the FireX AQ project. Based in Idaho, NASA scientists will be taking wildfire smoke measurements all across the western U.S. until the end of summer. Then they'll compare the data to what satellites are seeing from space. The snowmelt and wet spring in the west has allowed vegetation to grow high and thick in many places. Now the dry heat of late summer is starting to catch up.
Those warmer temperatures allow the fuels and grasses and trees to become much drier and much more prone to fire.
And that heat has been on very high, even breaking all-time records across the globe.
Last July, the warmest month ever recorded as we take the temperature of our planet on a whole. Those conditions allow areas that would normally be too wet to burn to become more fire prone, and areas that were already at risk of fire to become bone dry and at risk of a more extreme wildfire that's more difficult to suppress.
The heating has been noticed in parts of Colorado as well. Data from Climate Central shows more heat records in Denver over the last 9 years than any decade in the 150-year climate record, while it shows cold records are declining.
And so hotter daytime and nighttime temperatures both have an impact on the way in which fires are changing our planet.
Meteorologist Repkin for Next.
They were such learning experiences because they were all the conversations were rooted around what was taking place in the community.
The founder of the Black Panthers Denver chapter died a little over a week ago. His son reflects on his dad's life and legacy. And it appears the Old Town Road led someone to a brewery in Golden, and it's definitely the most Colorado thing we saw today. Next. The train pulling into the station, just not for another 31 years. It is time to take a look at the countdown until the Longmont Train. So as always, our graphics guy Geoff is not here today. We have this very reliable handwritten sign that Kyle made a while back. We are a mere 11,097 days from all of this thing being fully operational, you know, like the Death Star. RTD says without the extra funding, the train won't be ready until 2050. Hey, by then someone may have actually built a Death Star. It brought people from Arvada, Golden, and the former city of Leyden all the way to Denver during the first half of the 20th century. Now the city of Arvada is working with a local organization to restore the old .04 trolley. The trolley originally began operation in 1911. It was shut down in the summer of 1950, and the city and the Friends of the .04 trolley want to restore the trolley and put it on display. They will work to restore it and from the exterior and the interior to its former 1940s glory. The fundraiser benefiting the project is planned for next Thursday behind the REI in Denver. The most Colorado thing we saw today is something riding down the old saloon, or I guess in this case, brewery. Denise, she sent us some photos of horses tied up to the old hitching posts outside the New Terrain Brewing Company in Golden this week. She says there's no better designated driver. That's not actually true, though, because technically riding a horse while drunk is not a DUI. It's its own type of traffic infraction, by the way, that comes with a $100 fine. Colorado search and rescue teams have a busy year, mainly because of our odd winter causing rivers to overflow. People keep putting themselves into dangerous situations, and the numbers would indicate many of them aren't helping cover the cost. The Colorado Outdoor Recreation Search and Rescue, or CORSAR card, is pretty affordable, $3 for 1 year. It helps cover the cost of search and rescue teams. But during last year's fiscal year, which ended on June 30th, the state only sold about 12,000 cards, making about $87,000. 12,000? I'm guessing quite a few more people use our wilderness than that. And last year, the state doled out about $353,000 of CORSAR funds to local rescue agencies. Gilpin County, for example, got $21,000 of it to buy new National Guard equipment for hoist rescues. And Clear Creek County took in $18,000 for climbing rescue equipment. So CORSAR cards are available in two types, 1 year for $3, 5 years for $12. Hunting and fishing licenses also pay into that CORSAR fund. The California transplants just keep coming. Now one of the state's most iconic fast food joints wants to set up shop in Lone Tree. We'll share some of your favorite Colorado burger spots. And he was at the forefront of the fight against racial injustice and inequality in Colorado. The son of Lauren Watson shares the legacy of the Black Panther leader. Next. Lauren Watson was at the forefront of the fight against racial injustice in our state during the civil rights movement. Watson, who founded the Black Panther Party's chapter in Denver, died last week at the age of 79. Today, his son, Hasira, opened up to us about his dad, who did so much for Colorado's black community.
My father was born in San Francisco in 1940. He moved to Denver when he was 10 years old, moved right here to the east side is what we call it. My father was a 6'1" black man whose great-grandfather was lynched in Mississippi and was determined to do whatever he could do by any means necessary not to have that passed on for the next generation to inherit. That's who Lorne Watson was. My earliest memories of him in community is one of a community organizer that gave his all. From a very early age, it gave me a sense of pride. There was no one that, as soon as someone asked me who my father was, as soon as I said his name, there wasn't anyone who didn't know who he was. It could go either way for you as far as once you told them that you were Lorne Watson's son. His journey into his own organizing, community organizing life was the Vietnam War. The brother's name is Gerald Dixon. They actually traveled to Oakland together, the first times to connect with Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver and Bobby Seale in order to bring the Black Panther Party back here to Denver, Colorado. Edgar Hoover knew my father by name. So this is the MLK statue, and of course that's MLK. This is Rosa Parks. My father did a very good job of letting me know that there are those that have preceded me, that have worked for and struggled for the very same things that I'm working for and struggling for and that he worked for and struggled for. And so we're part of a fraternity of freedom fighters. I think he would be most proud of the fact that his idea and his desire and what he worked and lived for will not be in vain, because the seeds of that are firmly planted and blossoming within his prodigy.
The memorial service for Watson will be held at 11 a.m. on Tuesday at Shorter AME Church. A tweet from a friend of this program really stopped us in our tracks yesterday. Dr. Camilla Sasson, former 9 News medical expert and ER doctor who was a hero the night of the Aurora theater shooting. She tweeted about 2 encounters with patients in the last few days. One hurled racial slurs at her and told her to go back to Mexico. She's from Chicago. And another patient threatened to kill her. But perhaps even more disturbing, she heard from some people on Twitter suggesting that she picked a career in emergency medicine, so she ought to know how to brush this kind of stuff off. And she admittedly did just brush it off at first. But then she pointed it out, like we all should. What kind of country are we living in that someone feels emboldened enough to say that to one of our heroes? We shouldn't brush that off. We should be mad about it. We should make an example out of it. Because if we say nothing, what's stopping someone from saying something hateful to a police officer, to a firefighter, to our neighbor? Hate should feel uncomfortable, and we have to make it feel uncomfortable. It's the only way to make it, or to keep it from becoming normal. Well, you can help us find the best burger in Colorado that's not from a California fast food chain. Next. So you may have heard there is a rare, almost mythical burger chain that wants to come to Colorado. Specifically, it wants to open up a restaurant near the Park Meadows Mall. If you've ever been to California, or you know someone from California, you've probably heard all about it. It's called like Off and On, something like that. Anyway, we think Denver and Colorado as a whole already have some really good burger spots, places that are better than this chain from the Golden State. Go ahead and send me your hate mail now. A lot of you, though, seem to agree. Deb says Cherry Cricket and Park Burger are great. Bob's Atomic Burgers is delicious. Love that place. Crown Burger for old school. Just had a burger there a few weeks ago. And my favorite gourmet burger is Revival Brews in Evergreen. Becky says the Shack, Bad Daddy's, Five Guys, Freddy's, all better than In-N-Out Burger. And Angel does give us some good perspective. She says what makes In-N-Out special is the sparkling clean restaurant, the ability to watch your fries being cut and fried, and the quality. There are better burgers, but for the price, you can't go wrong. I don't know. It's a debate I guess we'll have to have next time.